Welcome back to the Marvel Movie Minute, a daily podcast in which we explore the films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe 1 minute at a time. In this, our 5th season, we are looking at Joe Johnston's 2011 film, Captain America, The First Avenger. I'm Andy Nelson from the True Story FM Entertainment Podcast Network.
And I'm Pete Wright, and airbags? We don't need airbags.
Today we're talking about Minute 103, which begins with the Valkyrie taking shots at Cap's drop plane and ends with some fisticuffs between Cap and Skull. Back on the show, it's Ryanne Bennett. Hello again, Ryanne.
Hello. I'm ready for the fighting to continue. Again, I don't know what that says about me, but I'm very excited.
Oh, it says a lot. Everybody listening should know that you had this much glee about fighting when we weren't recording. Like, this is not Ryan's show. This is deep core identity stuff. Get
Andy and Peter are like, what is happening right now? Yeah, I'm very into this.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny. It is so funny. So the minute starts with Steve. He's still in the drop plane, or the Fliegerparasite, as they're called, and he's piloting it around. He's avoiding the shots from the Tesseract blasters that are on the top of the Valkyrie, and he comes around the backside of it and basically decides, you know what, I'm just going to crash my way in. As he's flying right up to the Valkyrie, there's two things here. One, do you think that Red Skull intentionally designed the struts between the jets where Steve is going to crash the plane into to look like his face? Because it looks like skull eyes and a skull nose. It totally does. If you look at second 9 of this minute, it looks like Skull's face right there.
I was scrubbing back. Oh my gosh, it's all I can see now.
Yeah. It's like he's peeking out.
Oh my God, it's so perfect.
And number 2, and this is something we haven't talked about at all, but it certainly makes sense to talk about now because it's just Captain America and Red Skull left here in the Valkyrie. All the pilots had suits on, so presumably they could breathe up here at whatever this altitude they're at. But Steve and Red Skull, neither of them have anything to breathe with, and he's flying into the back of the plane that is just struts. It's not like there's nothing sealing it, and so that means that this whole thing is it's not pressurized for people to be, walking around and breathing. Is this just because they're super soldiers that they don't need all the oxygen to breathe up here?
Hell yes, it is. They have super lungs.
Okay, so their super lungs just breathe in deeper and suck extra oxygen in? Is that what you're saying?
They're much more efficient. Okay. You might call them the hybrid cars of soldiers. They process... Good callback? No? Okay. They process their limited oxygen more efficiently than the rest of us do. And so they're able to exist in almost outer space with no air.
I'm just still on. This literally looks like his face. This guy he's the worst. He literally, everything has got to be about him and what his impression is and what he's going to make. It literally looks like his face at the back of his face. I never noticed that. How many times I've watched this film and I've never noticed that?
Right.
You can almost imagine him standing next to the designer as they're kind of architecting it and looking at the back and Red Skull saying, look at me. Look at my face. More of that. You see my eyes in that, because if you don't, I want to see you see my eyes in that plane.
Oh my gosh. This guy's the worst. That's all I gather from that. That's all I have to add.
He is the worst.
It is so funny. It is just so funny. I think the plan for Steve makes sense. He's got this little thing. He's just like, well, it came out of there. I'm just going to put it right back into the thing. And he flies it into it. It works for me. His shield, again, conveniently is still there. So he's able to kind of get himself armed. And he has no pilots left. It's just the two of them. And this is really where we've been going for this entire
movie,
sequence. Yeah, well, yeah, really. But since this final battle started, when the Allies invaded the Hydra headquarters, we've been building to this moment where we've slowly been whittling away. We got rid of the Howling Commandos. We got rid of Colonel Phillips and Agent Carter. We've now gotten rid of all the pilots and all of the other Hydra people. It's now come down to our protagonist and our antagonist, and they are the only two souls left on this plane. And yeah, so this is kind of the start of the final confrontation between these two. And so it's right here. He gets his shield. he is ready to go, and he kind of sneaks into the cockpit and kind of pokes around looking for Red Skull. How does it play? Do you like the way that it kind of like he sneaks in? Does it feel like a logical tactical move for him? What do you two think?
It's I don't know if it's tactical. It's just unnerving. It's just where I'm just on the edge of my seat. He's gonna get hit. I'm just like, he's gonna get hit. There's no way Red Skull doesn't see this entrance because it's so wide. There's nothing really around for him to hide himself. At this point, so many of his minions, robots are gone. So it's just like he has to have some assumption that somebody else is here on this plane disrupting his plan. So I was just on the edge of my seat. I don't know if it was tactical, but it's. I mean, he's a barrier because he's Captain America, so he's not going to easily punch through him. But it just had me on the edge of my seat, like, okay, which direction he's coming from? I was like, I can't remember. Is it going to be on the left? Is it going to be on the right? He's going to have the shield. So yeah.
So I have two thoughts. First, it's kind of a Scooby-Doo entrance, right? Like the way Cap crosses the room, you can kind of imagine like Scooby and Shaggy following right behind him in the same exact move, like tiptoeing across the grate. Like, I think that's very funny, and it probably shouldn't be as funny as I find it. But second, like, the place is pretty wide open, right? So Cap moves toward the chair, right? And we as the audience can see, I think, pretty clearly that there's nobody in the chair, right? The chair is empty. It kind of comes. So why does Cap, once they make that cut to the chair from Cap's POV, why does he continue moving in that direction? Why doesn't he stop and think maybe he's somewhere else? And then, so I guess I have three thoughts. He turns around, and it turns out Red Skull was like standing back right by the door the whole time. Like, why didn't Cap see him when he walked past him the first time? Red Skull was being that sneaky and like trying not to move. Was he playing sardines? Like, maybe he'll come and join me and none of the pilots will find me. I just find all of that like a little bit minute by minute kind of crazy. I don't think about it when I'm just watching the movie, but watching a minute at a time, it's the Scooby-Doo minute.
Well, there's definitely enough in here. Like, there are struts all over the place. It's not designed for comfort. It's designed so you see all of, it's like modern architecture where why put in a ceiling when it's more fun to look at the beams and all the wires.
Well, yeah, it's also kind of a cathedral, right? Like, it is definitely a shrine for him.
Oh, absolutely. With a throne. I mean, that's essentially kind of what the whole pilot seat looks like. It feels very throne-like. I did also want to point out, though, clearly it is designed for three people because if you look, there are seats on either side, much lower. Yeah. But still, there are two seats on either side for co-pilots. I guess it was just such a rush that he didn't bring them along.
None of the buttons on those do anything. They're just like play school. Like plastic.
I love that.
Honk, honk.
I love that. Yeah. Right. But to your point, though, I do think there probably is plenty of places for him to hide in here. Like, I like that's not something that I've ever worried about. Like, how did Cap not see him? Because I feel like this is such a ridiculously large cockpit that it could be anywhere back in the shadows.
Okay,
so,
I'll give you that. I absolutely will give you that.
Except that Cap has super seeing and super smelling, as we've discussed, and super hearing. So I think that he should have had some clue. But
I think
Red Skull is also super, so he could be super. He can
sneaky.
Say, super sneaky, and I can say I'm going to hold back my odor so that Cap can't smell me.
He has super odor control. That is disgusting and awesome. Thank you for that. I just want to say, in all seriousness, in regard to the presentation of the scene and building intensity for these two guys, I think being able to show that Red Skull is somewhere in here, I think there is more value in the audience knowing that Red Skull knows where Cap is, brings greater intensity than the Scooby-Doo tiptoe toward the chair that we know is empty. I think this whole conceit in this 60-second frame could have been more intense than it is, and to me it ends up being just kind of funny.
Well, it is when you see Captain America tiptoeing across the grates, yeah.
And then Red Skull comes out, and then when Cap says "zoinks," like it feels like they really were going for something that they didn't intend.
Well, Pete, one thing that I knew that you would be thrilled to actually have back here, though, is the lens flare. Because now that we have the Tesseract, the cube console right there, we're getting the blue Tesseract lens flare shooting across the screen again.
There's so much of it. It's just like literally lens flare is oozing out of the bottom of that device, and it's so stupid and sexy.
Ryan, what do you think of the way that the Tesseract works? Like, do you like the blue glow and the way that the lens flares with it and everything? Does it seem, does it provide enough otherworldly feel to it?
Right. I feel like if you're not a super soldier, you definitely need like some like badass sunglasses, right? Like every time it goes off, because it lights up everything. But I love the way it's shot, because to me, it doesn't look like such a cheesy effect. But it also, like, you have to give him something to kind of combat this vibranium shield that now the Cap has back. So I just like them both playing off each other, because they're both they're just too super for the scene. So it's a lot of like glare. It's a lot of like, you can't contain them in this one, like a huge coliseum at the end. You can't contain this power. So, you have to have the lens flare and the beams going off everywhere.
I love that. They're just too super.
They're too super for this cathedral. Is it interesting, though? So we get the scene. We get the big reveal. Red Skull actually has a pew-pew gun, and he fires. They have an exchange that is, so you don't give up, do you? And Cap's response is no. In a movie that is full of quips, this seems to be
nope.
It seems to be the most like boring exchange between these beings who are, we've acknowledged, too super for this space. That it is written really subdued. I don't know why we don't get a super fingers could do this all day kind of a thing. Like I feel like we need something. But then Red Skull has no problem shooting in such a way that just blows holes in his massive ship. Like, he has no problem with that. Like, he pulls the trigger and now there's wind everywhere. Like, he just blew a hole in the thing that he's been creating.
Further evidence that the two of them have super lungs and are able to pull extra oxygen out of the air.
That's right. They're very efficient.
Yeah.
Hybrids.
Yeah.
And he's like a little kid, if you think about it. He's like a little, like, he's like, oh, it doesn't matter. I don't care anymore. I'm just going to destroy everything until I get you. It doesn't matter. I don't care about, I might can't breathe over here. Maybe this just messes up the Tesseract. I don't care. I'm going to shoot you because you're coming after me.
Yeah.
He's like a little kid squabbling, like, that's in a corner, like, doesn't have anywhere to go.
It is very strange, his motivations. Ryan, in case you hadn't heard, this gun that he's using is called the Arnimulation 99L assault weapon.
Wow, I'm glad you had to say that and not me.
Arnim Zola. Yeah.
But it sounds very cool. It sounds very cool.
It cracks me up. So this, conveniently, he's using this gun to shoot at Steve. He also still has his Hydra pistol on his hip. So maybe that will come into play at some point. At this point, though, he's just blasting Steve with this, and Steve is smart enough to raise his shield, because as we have seen, his shield, the vibranium, apparently is enough to stop the Tesseract blasts. And also it speaks to the fact that Red Skull never aims at his legs. He always aims right at his chest. I'm not exactly sure why he hasn't caught on to that yet, but
that's kind of the thing about all movies where characters have shields. Somehow the shield is the target. They're moths to flames. Shoot the legs.
Maybe it ties into the magnetic elements that we've talked about before, and maybe it's magnetically actually drawing the blasts to it. So maybe he is aiming for the legs.
I'm so glad you're here.
Somebody's got to figure this damn movie out.
Oh, you just solved it. You fixed it.
All right, so here's another question, and this goes back to our conversations that we've had about Steve and the levels of violence that he commits over the course of the film, especially here once he gets to the plane. So he runs at Red Skull, and he knocks the Arnimulation gun out of Skull's hands with his shield. He punches Skull in the gut. And then he swings at Skull's neck with the edge of his shield, which is only not hitting him because Skull does a little Matrix move and leans backwards to avoid it hitting him. But if you look at his neck in second 57 of this and where he's standing, and you look at the shield when it comes through in a few frames later in second 57, that would have gone through his neck had he not moved. So I ask you this, is Steve trying to actually just decapitate Red Skull right here?
I don't know if you knew this, but like in one of the like really deep cut issues of the comics, I think what we learn is the Howling Commandos have kind of a thing where they always bring back the head of one of their victims. So this is part of the culture, isn't that right? They always bring back the head. So gross. Also, it's not true.
You had me going. That was very convincing. I was like, oh, maybe I guess he does want to bring back the head. I mean, he's a trophy or something. I was very convinced, but I mean, we know I love the fighting, so I personally would have went for his head because I'm tired of, at this point, of trying to chase this guy around and he's like blowing up everybody. But Cap, I mean, Cap is he's supposed to be a little bit more, I guess calmer in certain situations. Maybe that's just the way the sword went. The sword took him because he's still kind of getting used to the feel of it. It's very light. So it's like maybe it just kind of went that direction. Maybe that's not what he's actually trying to do.
I like the idea of it. Yeah.
But
yeah.
I would have just took him off. Yeah. I would have
Of course you would have. We've learned enough from you over the last couple of episodes. I mean? We know exactly where you live.
I think it's really funny that he is so violent and ready to behead his enemy right here.
Yeah.
I think it says a lot.
But I mean, how much does it really say that we haven't learned after Red Mist Minute, right? Like,
yeah. And it also speaks to the fact that, we've seen Steve use moves like this in the past. So I guess it speaks to the fact that, we haven't really been catching on to just how much aggression and violence Steve really has in him that he's wanting to take out on these troopers.
Right. Mm-hmm. I think Netflix has a follow-up to Dahmer, and it's just called Rogers.
Oh, jeez.
It took a second, but you guys all got there. Steve's a murderous villain, is what I'm saying. That's okay. Everybody's caught up.
Well, they're both breathing fine in this cockpit with the wind flowing through it. And also, maybe they're not high enough, but isn't there a thing with like the suction? Do you have to be even higher than this before
they might
the air
be
starts
sucked out of the room?
Yeah, isn't that a thing? Or is that only we don't know the altitude, but still, I feel like I see that in even airplane movies where people get sucked out the windows because
it's depressurized. But
maybe that's the pressure thing. There's no pressure.
There's no pressure problem because everybody has like doors are opening and closing. Like he just opened the door, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's not
that's it.
Like it's not a pressurized thing. Everybody is super or suited
or in suits. Yeah, super or suited.
Super or suits. Yeah.
Right.
Normal people parachute. Yes, these guys they don't care.
They don't care.
That's an interesting question. If Steve had fallen, would he have landed okay? I mean, when he's done it before, or he'll do it later, I guess I should say, in context of chronological with the movies.
But then he lands in water.
But he's not this high. Well, and he's also not this high.
Yeah.
I guess it takes some years to heal, though. I mean, I guess it works, but he just can't pop back up, I guess. Yeah. Like he's not, it would be a Superman moment.
Yeah. I'd like to think that if he did fall and if he did have his shield, he would land on it like a surfboard on the mountain slopes and actually like James Bond his way down.
I don't want to like take anything away from you, but we do already have that again in our favorite callback, the Indiana Jones franchise, where he in Short Round land in the boat and sled down. Like that would have been Steve.
So basically what we're learning from this is Joe Johnston really just wanted to remake the Indiana Jones films.
I can't believe it took us to minute 103 to say that complete sentence out loud.
Except for you had to have Chris Evans in tights. I mean, that's why I was watching. I don't know about you guys. Like that, I'm just saying.
Oh, of course that has to be there.
Outstanding.
What do you think of Red Skull, Ryan? Do you like the portrayal of Red Skull in the film and how he looks?
I don't like the way he looks is very scary. I don't know how people are just like, as soon as I would have saw him take the face off, I would have been, the doctor, I don't know why he's still with him. I would have just been like, yeah, just go ahead and do what you're going to do with me because I'm done. I mean, dude, like it's red. The nose is caved in. Like you obviously have no concern just for your body at all. It's just the energy and the mission is all you care about. Obviously you're not concerned. So why am I hanging out with you? It's just my thing about Red Skull. Why am I there? Because you obviously don't care. So I'm just, so I don't even understand why they're hanging around him, but that's just my 2 cents. I mean, I was trying to take him out before, so you already know how I feel about him in general.
Yeah. How did this guy build such a following? Like, you got to wonder how many people are looking at it like, ooh, look at that skull. I'd like to get me some of that. That's ridiculous.
Like, let me rip off my skin. What?
Yeah.
Why are they?
Yeah.
I don't. It's crazy. It's insane. Like, his dedication to the mission, I guess, is admirable and crazy at the same time.
Well, here's a weird question that obviously we'll never know the answer to, but is it like muscle? Is it like his skin turned red and pulled close to his muscle, and like it's just wrapped tightly around his skull? Because it's not like his actual skull. Like, I mean,
right.
But still, like, I don't like. Can he get cut? Like, if he gets, like, we never see like Steve give him a punch, and now he's got a bleeding lip on top of also having this creepy red face. Like, I don't know. Sometimes I'm wondering. I'm like, I don't know if I fully understand like what the actual. And I know it's a comic book character, so it's like impossible to really lay out the physiological inner workings of Red Skull's face. But like, really, what is going on there?
Well, it's such an interesting choice. Like the conflict, the structural conflict that it creates is really fascinating, because you're right. Like 90% of the skull looks just like the flesh and tissue was taken away. The skin was stained and pulled very tight to his body. And yet the nose is counterintuitive to that, because all the nose looks like the skull looks underneath, right? Without, like, it's most of the cartilage is gone. And yet, so how did that go away and the skin go kind of into itself? But then he still has a tongue and very white teeth. How does that still exist in the context of what happens to the rest of him? It doesn't make sense. It's horrifying. But the fact that there is no impact on his teeth and tongue, and that his nose did what it did, it doesn't make sense. Scary, but doesn't make sense.
I would love to have had a moment in the lab with Erskine when he goes through this procedure for the first time, and he looks at himself in the mirror and does a Ronald Reagan, and he goes, "Well, where's the rest of me?" All right, there's a deep cut for people to jump into that one.
He pulls a Ronald Reagan. Well played.
Oh my god!
I'm just saying he could have put on a hat, but instead he did this to his face. I'm just saying you could have just like
I would evil hat.
You could have just put on a hat. Instead he does this. He's very terrifying. This dedication is very terrifying to me.
Do you think it would have been worse if he wore a wig?
Oh, geez.
Like maybe they won't notice if I have my regular haircut.
But okay, so Rand, did you do any? Do you have you seen any other of the like the Captain America older movies? The one with the Red Skull rat. Like, have you seen any of the other?
No,
stuff?
I haven't seen it. I wanted to see some of that. Yeah.
Oh, no, you don't.
I don't. Okay.
No, I mean,
okay.
you say
Never mind.
you say that now, but you'll thank me later if you don't.
Okay. Thank you for saving me, because I'm still. So he doesn't put on a hat, I'm assuming.
Well, there's just interesting like treatment of Red Skull and what Red Skull happens. I think through the comics, like it's been. Is it a mask? Is it a person? Is it like it? There's a long history of like not of inconsistent treatment of what and who Red Skull is, and so this is definitely an opinionated one, but it's certainly not the only one.
Yeah, it's my recollection in the TV movie, or no, the 1990 actual movie, is that they tried to make his face look like, you know how a skull has those seams in it.
Ooh, yeah.
It looked kind of like they were trying to, like they put seams across his face, like they were trying to make it skull-like, but it also seemed too big to be a skull, so it just seemed like kind of a mutant of some sort. It was a very odd look, but
yeah, but he had a nose, right? That was an
Correct.
interesting,
yeah.
Thank God, at least he had a nose.
Yeah, he had a nose.
Right. There was that. Yeah, it's an interesting thing. But he also had kind of like he did the thing where he had the human mask over it at one point, as I recall also. So
yeah,
it's an interesting character design. And I don't know, my brain always goes to the only other Skull character I can think of, which is, of course, Skeletor from Masters of the Universe, and how nonsensical he ended up looking, because the character always seemed like basically he had a talking skull is kind of what it looked like in the cartoon, but in the movie, the Dolph Lundgren movie, it seemed like they were trying to do something like that, but it just they never pulled it off. So it seems at least like here they're doing something that kind of makes the concept of this cartoonish skull character actually kind of work in an interesting way.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we'll wrap up our conversation today with this minute. So, Ryanne, thank you so much. And again, tell everybody where they can find you out there on the interwebs.
Thank you. I do not fight as much on this podcast that you usually can find me on, but Black Hair Nerds, we're usually talking about. I do talk about people that do fight though. So superheroes. We just recently wrapped up House of the Dragons. I don't know if you guys came back from the GOT world of it all, so definitely check that out. So I have a blast doing that with them, and you can find me at November Bear on Twitter, Ryan Ben on Instagram, and I'm ready. I can keep these minutes going because the fighting I needed to keep going.
You're there for it. I love it. I love it. All right. Well, we will be back tomorrow then, everybody, to talk more about this particular fight with Ryan and with Pete. So, Pete, thanks as always.
Super fingers out.
Until next time, true believers.
Marvel Movie Minute is a production of True Story FM. Engineering by Andy Nelson. This season's music is Spread the News by Anthony Vega, and this season's show art is by Winston Yabo. Find the show at truestory.fm, and if your podcast app allows ratings and reviews, consider doing that for this show.